That's fine.
All right, here we are, episode 19. I'm with Debbie, and she lost her daughter Ava, forever 24. I'm going to let her introduce herself and what happened to Ava, and we'll kind of go from there with what she's been doing. So thanks for being here.
Thanks. Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me. My name is Debbie. Um, I'm the mother of Amy and Howland. My name's Debbie. Um, her died May 11th, 2018. She was poisoned with fentanyl. She also died wrapped up in something called the Florida Shuffle. So she was patient birth over in the facility. So she ended up dying halfway sober home, whatever you call it. She died alone, cold and blue in a room, and her household people. So it's been a difficult journey from the time she died until now. Fighting fentanyl since she died. I didn't know, I knew of fentanyl, but I didn't really understand what it was until she died. So definitely put me in a fight or flight mode to get justice for her. I did not get justice for the fentanyl, but I did get justice for the Florida Shuffle and the patient program that took place, and how she ended up dead when she was in treatment. So,
You
other than
brought,
that,
when you brought up that you had heard of fentanyl, is that just because you're in the kind of the medical industry, or
No, no. So I had been in the Addicts Name
okay,
Facebook page, and they were dropping like flies in there, and they kept saying fentanyl, fentanyl. So the day before Ava died, I had a really long conversation with her, an extremely gentle conversation with her to, kind of warn her that, that everything's fentanyl out there. And, for God's sakes, if you're going to use, please don't use alone, because she was, suffering substance use disorder and mental illness. So she relapsed. But what we didn't know is that they had been spiking her drugs. And I didn't know this till after she died. When I had some lawsuits after she died, three lawsuits. Um, Department of Justice, and one was a civil case. But she had been getting fentanyl since February, and she died in 11. And she kept saying from February to May, I don't know what's wrong, Mom. The cravings are really bad. I can't stop it. I don't want to die. And so she had been getting very minute amounts of fentanyl. So, um, yeah.
it's crazy. Well, I brought that up is because most parents or anybody that's lost somebody to fentanyl, when somebody says it was fentanyl, and most people are like, "What is fentanyl?" So
Exactly. And for all the advocating that we've done over, fentanyl started really hitting about 2018. That's when it became, there were cases in 15 and 16 and 17, but not as they progressed in 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We're probably with the, we're probably well over 1 million lives taken from fentanyl or fentanyl related issues. And, because of the mixture of, drug supplies tainted and poison,
yeah,
with the trank and that was xylazine and other like veterinary drugs is what they're poisoning the drug supply with. Died a miserable, death. She was alone, and she was, um, she died. So I don't even know that she knew she died. She died very quickly, and she bled out, and she was on the floor, and people did try to save her. Her boyfriend tried to save her. He had AMA'd out of the facility, and he actually walked to the house she was at. They didn't want to let him in. He went in anyway. He found her on the floor. So, but they gave her numerous amounts of Narcan, but she had already been dead. Best of my calculation is that she was dead. by 4:30 in the afternoon. She was last phone call was 3:30 to the facility. She was actually talking to a dear friend of hers at the facility who ran the facility that she had left. Um, so near as I can tell, she was probably dead in an hour by the time we found her, which is
Does
hard to believe because there were 8 people in this.
yeah. Do they have a murder charge in Florida?
Well, they have a drug-induced homicide charge. In other words, they have it's HB 477, I think it is, and we do have, death by delivery. So, and it includes fentanyl, but it's been on the books since 1972, I think.
Oh, so they're
So,
just tagging off of another drug and okay.
so anyway, that started my, I guess you'd call it advocacy work and living the life of an angel mom, and you know, ended up doing outreach for homeless and addicted in Kensington, Philadelphia, for almost 5 years. Um, I After I started doing that, I realized that other angel families needed help to get through their grief. So I started to include them in my outreach by taking donation shoes, clothes, whatever the case may be, baby wipes, whatever it was. I collected donations in the tri-state area and up north. And then I do like a video for their angels, and I do graphics for their angels. And then I, show them everything and who it went out to, that kind of thing. Never exploiting the people, but,
Right.
you know,
Well, I love that you bring that up about, the families. And I've always said we're the victims left behind, the way I look at it.
right.
You brought up a million people, and I know that the whatever, whether they're true numbers or not, because I know it's still below what it should be, because a lot of places don't. But I said 450,000 people, since Preston died. And that's 10 family members or friends with each. So that's 4.5. So now that I think about it, with the number you said, there's 10 million victims left behind that are having to deal with this. And,
Correct. And a lot of children without parents.
you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I was talking to somebody, I don't even remember who it was the other day, that I forgot who it was. We were talking like the opioid abatement money. They're trying to get money from the DEA and stuff, confiscated money to help out for pay for funerals as well. Because, most people don't expect, a $10,000, $20,000 expense. And and then also I never thought about it this way. Some people just lose their jobs because they can't work, not because they're physically can't, they just mentally can't. So I mean it's
There's high number of, there's a lot of Angel moms that commit suicide. I did grief support for Team Sharon Incorporated. I did grief support for the Pennsylvania chapter for almost 2 years. So I spent days and weekends working full time, and then I'd be on the phones grieving moms till midnight. I currently monitor the drug-induced homicide Pennsylvania chapter, and then I also do all the postings for all the entire country, all of our chapters. So I work closely with Tara Bear and her board, and we try to help families either navigate the justice system, help them get justice, help them understand the different laws in the different states, give them advice how to help police officers that are investigating the children's deaths, how to investigate it properly. So we do a lot of work. All of us parents do, uh, and even if it's just walking into a grocery store and talking to somebody, handing somebody Narcan. Like, I've given so much Narcan now, and like, about how many people, like you said, don't know what fentanyl is until they find their child dead in bed, or they get a phone call like I did. And he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought he was sorry because he didn't call me back early because I was calling the hospital. And when it hit me, I was just in shock. I was in silence. I didn't have that blood curdling scream. I was just in shock. And I was alone. And so yeah, I smoked a carton of cigarettes that night and trying to figure out what the hell. Because my daughter died in Florida and I lived in Pennsylvania, and I had to her in Florida. So, um, yeah, it was traumatic. I think we all suffer great trauma,
Yeah.
and a lot of families with PTSD, um, finding their family member deceased. We go through a lot, but yet we still fight for all these kids and families across the United States, you know.
You mentioned the lady that committed suicide. It's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do these purpose videos. So if anybody has just lost somebody, you're not alone. When the first year Preston died, I didn't want to live. And I'm sure that's just a common feeling for a lot of people. And
It is.
that's and it sucks. It really does. And hopefully that's why I'm sure, want to share your story, share everybody else's story that has a purpose. Just give it time. There is no grief period, stages of, oh, year two's better. Everybody's different, you know.
It's forever when you as a child.
Yeah.
But, for every time you walk in the grocery store and you pass something you used to buy for your child,
Oh, yeah.
for every Facebook graduation time, for the families that their kids didn't get to graduate because they died so young, fentanyl's, taking the lives of 18 to 45-year-olds now, um, at a very high rate, and also, the mortality for infants, with the fentanyl crisis has increased, I think, quite a bit of percent. Um, so, you know, it's devastating what's happened, to all of us. And as far as the opioid abatement money goes, I've had some close up personals with people that have been, and I've gone to a few of the meetings in Pennsylvania. I held an Angel Mom roundtable with the county people doing the abatement, and it's still, it just boils down to politics, and you know, it's not going where it should be going.
Yeah.
I monitor also the drug-induced homicide prisons, treatment centers, and sober living site as well. And more sober homes are shutting down than they are opening. And you know why? Because they got their funding cut. And you know why? Because they're not gonna take away their own paychecks. So
Exactly.
they're shutting the houses. That's exactly correct. And so, yeah, you don't see a lot of help going to the right places. I know in Philadelphia they tried to put in paying people's mortgages and build playgrounds in Pennsylvania, and not part of treatment, recovery, substance use, mental illness. So it's not part of that, they tried to get it and they got called on it. So it's really not for that. It's meant to help people. But how many detoxes have you saw open up where you are? How many new facilities have you seen open up?
Well,
Nothing.
yeah, Texas is number 48, I think, in the United States for adolescent, indigent care. And I know there's the Phoenix House. There was one up in Dallas area, but now I think it's only one in Austin. So if you're an adolescent, you're screwed, if you don't have insurance. And why that abatement,
And
yeah, why that abatement money in Texas, they want to give it to universities and hospitals for prevention. And
And they're not that's not what's going to stop the deaths. I mean, it's helpful, but it's not going to stop the deaths. It's boots on the ground. It's people, going to events, table and Narcan, me handing out these, beautiful packets from Drug Free World, .org. They put my daughter in here, my daughter Ava's in here. These pamphlets you can get them free online at drugfreeworld.org. They also have like kits. They have amazing resources on all drugs at this website, drugfree.org, drugfreeworld.org. They do have amazing resources, and these are great because they're so small. Like you can just hand somebody a pamphlet and like they can stuff it in their pocketbook or whatever, or in their back pocket, take it home and read it. So, but yeah, it's, people out there resourcing tables and, handing out resources and
and
cards. I have Travis up here. I have Marge's son Travis up there. I have these cards for Ava too. But on the back, it's all about fentanyl.
yeah.
So I have them for my daughter as well. They're in my car though, actually.
That
That's
boots
my,
on the boots on the ground that you were talking about, and
yeah,
and I know you probably know a lot of the people I know, whether prosecutors, DEA, they all say the same thing, and I'll repeat this a million times. They'll never arrest our way out of this or prosecute our way out of this crisis. It's the families sharing their stories, and I know that the numbers of deaths have gone down,
yeah,
but they have. Why is that? Because of the boots on the ground, because Narcan, the poisonings
families.
have gone up.
The families of America saved many hundreds of thousands of
Oh yeah.
lives, in my opinion. Um, I know, every chance I get, I'll give Narcan out, whether it's to the dentist, my dentist, you know, um, I gave the drug-free world pamphlet to one of the nurses that I work with, and she was like, "Wow, I didn't know all this."
No.
You know, people just don't know. And, people like us who are out putting our kids, I have Rachel's Angels. It's my daughter Ava right there. We put our kids on billboards. Rachel's Angels did amazing billboard for the past couple of years. Trying to basically it was to warn the public at large. None of us wanted, I don't think any of us got to really grieve our children. You cry, you suffer, but I don't think any of us got to truly grieve the loss of our child because we're pounding pavement no matter where we go, no matter what we do. It's advocacy, awareness, trying to save others, and it's not that we're not dealing with our own grief. It's just we don't want what happened to us to happen to them, and we don't want to see lives lost.
Would you consider pounding the pavement and doing everything you do therapy for you, though? I mean, do you think of it
It,
that way?
oh, So when I did outreach in Kensington, Kensington is a very
Yeah.
destitute place. It's really it's like a third world country there. It's very different than most because it's an open air drug market. So I got to see, when Ava died, I didn't really have a good understanding of, first of all, the original addiction, which was pills that led to heroin. Well, it started with alcohol, but that was more the mental part of it for her. But the pills, what are they called? Xanax and Percocet. Those pills led her to heroin because she couldn't afford the 60 or $80 for a pill anymore. So she got heroin. Heroin, I'll never forget my daughter sitting on the couch and looking at me and saying, "Do you really think I wanted to lose my family, lose my job, wreck my car? Do you really think that's the life that I wanted?" And it struck me that she really had no control over her addiction, or her substance use disorder. She really and her whole life, she said, "Oh, I'll never get addicted to anything, that's just not me." And sure enough, she did at age 19. She used heroin and she got addicted to it. And heroin is a ugly, um, very ugly addiction. It takes your child away and replaces it with somebody you don't know. And trying to fight to get your child back, it's like, devil's on one side, God's here, and you're like battling for that person's soul. You really are because, it's ugly. It's an ugly addiction. So I wasn't prepared for that. I grew up in an era where heroin was taboo. It was those people. You didn't go
Yeah.
near those people. That's the generation I grew up in. I grew up in the 60s, so very different. And nowadays, it's like a different generation where it's not going to happen to my kid. My kid goes to college. My kid, it's not going to happen to my child because I live in a $500,000 house. It doesn't work like that. You know, Fentanyl really doesn't care about, your color. It doesn't care about who you like. It doesn't care what side of the politics you're on. Fentanyl really doesn't care. It kills you.
No.
And so, if it's what kills you, and if you don't know it's in there, you're getting poisoned and you're dying. And that's one of the other things that we all advocated for is that, these deaths from fentanyl, mostly, I'm not going to say all, because I know people that actually used fentanyl in Kensington, they shopped for it. But most people didn't know they didn't know they got fentanyl. And because of that, it's no different than you walking into a restaurant and somebody giving you, some kind of rat poison on your salad or something. You don't know what's in there, and then you eat and you die. Like it's really terrible what happened in the United States. It's nice to see some of the turnaround that's happening for all of our families. I definitely participated in, writing Congress for the whole fentanyl act. I've done a lot of advocacy over the years. I'm kind of winding down now because of my personal situation, not because I want to, but because it doesn't fit into the realm that I live in now. So, um, but I'll be back uh, one day when I
Yeah,
have
you
a chance.
will.
I will be.
Trust me,
But
there's days I want to quit, and I'm like, if I quit, then I might
yeah.
miss that one person, you know.
Yeah, I know that part of self-care is take a step back. And one of the things that I've seen over the years is that as us, what I call old hats, as because we've been in this for so long, that you see the newer, people that have lost their children, more recent than we did. Um, they're stepping up to the plate and they're kind of taking over where the rest of us, most of the families that I dealt with over the years. We didn't have grants, we didn't have money, we paid out of pocket. And so many of us went broke, taking care of other people and doing things to fight the battle. People went in debt, people lost their homes, they do anything to save a life. But now that I'm a little bit older now, and senior citizen, um, you start to lose, you start to, think about, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing all this, you know, because things change. You know,
I do believe that our kids, or even if it's not a child, if it's a family member, I don't think they want us to have a sad life for the rest of our life. Because if it was reversed, would we want that? I think they want us to enjoy life. I can, not say for everybody, but I'm sure for Ava, she's looking down saying, "My mom's saving lives. It cost me my life." And I mean, it's tough to judge what we're saving or who we're saving. I think it's just our word, because you mentioned the families that, oh, this would never happen to my kid. I think the mentality in their head is, my kid won't become an addict. And I'm sitting there thinking, nowadays you don't have to worry about your child becoming an addict. They just go try one thing and they're dead. So the addiction,
exactly.
don't worry about that anymore. I mean, it's
The
just,
the landscape's changed,
yeah,
and the drug dealers definitely manipulated, social media. They definitely played on the heroin that was, flooding the people that were on pills, and they filled that in with heroin. I mean, it was a very planned, organized, in my opinion, you know, assault
right.
on America, between, the pharmaceutical companies and the pills that started it, all the way down to, the cartels and China and the people that are, making the precursors and then, of course, mixing them and creating pills. You we fought so hard for them to stop selling, pill machines online. We had to, we really had to fight. We're fighting a money machine, and
Yeah.
there's so many ATMs, and like you got to battle each ATM. That's why I don't know. I always say God chose the strongest warriors to fight a battle that had to end. So, and the fentanyl deaths are slowing down.
Yeah.
They are slowing down, and I'm thankful to the president for that. I'm thankful to families fighting fentanyl. I'm thank you, facing fentanyl. Andrea does great work. I'm very grateful to the stronger families. I did not start a 501c for AVA, although there is an AVA for Life Narcan Services program that was established in her honor. Um, but I didn't start a 501c. And I guess I could have been one of those big players, but I'm kind of a keep to myself person, like, you know, I stay pretty quiet, um, unless I'm speaking.
Well, you can say you're thankful for the new president and everybody else. I'm thankful for people like you that, in Texas, I can get a case of 48 Narcan just sent to my house every once in a while. And just me passing out a Narcan, I'm thankful that we have that opportunity to do that, to be honest.
I mean,
You don't have to be a Walgreens or I know you sent me the picture of the machines, not machines, but where you can put Narcan.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what saving lives is the families, the way I look at it. Yeah.
That's in that particular Narcan was dedicated. So I purchased that Narcan box in Nevada. Ava was born in Nevada, so I wanted a piece of her to be there. And I have multiple families, Wake Up Nevada, Moms Against Drugs, drug epidemic walk across America. Debbie, I know a lot of families. I've been in this a long time, so I know a lot of families. Um, and I've narrowed it down to just about 300 people that I stay close to. But you also, as an angel parent, you also have to deal with the fact that there are bad actors in our world.
Yes.
There are people who want to soak you dry for your money. There are people who make promises they don't keep and take your money. And as a new parent, you look for any way you can to have your child seen. And people take advantage of that. And so that's kind of where I come in for a lot of the families. Like people say, well, I don't know if they're any good. Let's talk to Debbie. So they'll come to me and I'll be like, well, this is what I know. This is what I don't know. And you make your own judgment, but I don't have anything to do with them, and that's the name of that. And
Yeah.
so,
I'm
I
with
just
you.
follow my instincts, and you know, I think I got taken once, and that was enough for me. So, like I said, I keep my circle small. And, it was a pleasure to meet you, by the way, when you came here to
Oh, it was
visit.
awesome to finally,
And
meet my
Ava, your dog. It's just ironic. My daughter's name is Ava, and she died, and your dog's name is Ava. It's kind of crazy, and your mom. So it's nice to see you both. And I really appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me and my daughter at a waterfall.
It was a pleasure as well. And one last thing I will say is over the past, God, it'll be 5 years, I guess, in January, I've gotten some of the hate stuff where people say, all these people that lost their kids to fentanyl, they must be unloving, bad parents. And I'm sitting
No.
here thinking, look, I look at you and it's like you put in 28 hours a day to fight this fentanyl crisis. And I'm always
Yeah.
thinking, well, she didn't care about her daughter and she was a bad parent. Why is she spending so much time caring about other people? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. They're caring parents. So it can happen to anybody. Don't feel the guilt, if anybody says, because I felt the guilt. What could I have done different? That type of thing. So I just,
Oh, there's always going to be that what if, could have, should have, why
yeah.
didn't I? That's all part of grief. I had a lot of guilt when my daughter died. I've worked through most of that guilt by attaining facts and been able to offset what I thought something was with the actual truth. So that helped alleviate some of the grief and the guilt. Um, but yeah, parents suffer terrible. And unless you've lost a child, you really don't understand child loss, and no one expects you to, right? But when you're going through grief, you think, why aren't the people who I love, you know, for example, someone told me, don't talk about Ava. We don't want to hear it. And I was a new grieving parent, like, probably under a year. And so, yeah, so I sunk a lot of my grief into the grief. Uh, Team Sharing is for parents who have lost their children to substance use disorder. Cheryl Herrera runs that group, and um, she started that. She's the founder. She lost both her sons, Corey and Sean. And the Pennsylvania chapter, we were very, very close and very tight. And we did a lot of traveling. We went to meet the angel families in different cities. We took our roles, as a moderator, just even an angel mom, um, to keep people above water. I mean, this grief will tear your heart out. And believe me, there's plenty of days I cry and plenty of days that I gotta, buckle my lip or I gotta leave the store or leave a cart full of stuff. I gotta get out because if I don't get out, I can't breathe.
Right.
you know, yeah, it doesn't go away. And the sad part is, the angel moms went to war, but we were never so happy as to start seeing angel dads, because dads handle grief so much differently
Oh yeah.
than moms. Dads really handle it very differently. And so it's been kind of a breath of fresh air to have dads like you step up and help other families and help other dads and other angel moms.
Well, and to any father that ever watches this, I, as a man, you're not supposed to share your emotions, and you'll lose your man card. And when I did the national parks, I cried, at a lot of them. And
You're allowed to cry.
yeah, and so that didn't mean that I had to trade in my truck for a minivan. That just meant that I had to share. And
And you got a nice truck too, by the
and that's,
way.
but I remember because when my youngest son died 20 years ago, I didn't talk about it for probably 12 years. And it caused me a divorce because the men usually
I'm
don't
so
share their
sorry.
feelings. And so I always tell people, and I've talked to other people, when you lose a child, if you're married, if you don't work on it, whether you're the mother or the father, I don't want to say I can guarantee it, but you have like a 90% chance rate of divorce. I've seen that.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I try and do the angel dads. I try and get these guys to, stop being a wuss, and let's talk. You don't have to talk about it, but let's just get together. In fact, tomorrow night we have our angel dad Zoom call where we just
That's
get,
wonderful.
yeah, half the time we just make fun of each other, but
Are you on there with Frankie,
yes, yeah, and
Opie's
that's,
husband? Yeah.
yes, and he's my biggest person I love to pick on more than anything
Oh,
in the world. So,
yeah. Opie's a good lady. I talk to her often. Mm. We have I guess, very trusting friendship. And her husband just, I know that he hurts. And it's nice that he has a place that he can,
yeah,
like you said, dads grieve differently.
yeah, and we get each other, and we don't have to listen to the women drama sometimes, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, and that's another thing, especially that's another part of being an angel mom. You deal with tremendous amount, an angel dad too, a tremendous amount of drama because, Facebook just breeds drama sometimes, and so does TikTok and all the other ones, unfortunately. You have to think about, had your child not died, would you have ever met or talked to that person?
Yeah,
Like, would I have ever met you from Texas? Never,
yeah,
right? I would have never met you. I would have never met Opie. I would have never met, all these people from California, the different groups, had our children not died, we would have never known each other. So I always say our angels are always with us because they really do put people in our lives that we need at the time we need them.
oh yeah, and it's
God is just, God is great. God definitely, God has been Jesus is my savior, and God has been my right arm since my daughter died.
yeah, and I believe that our children died for a purpose and for our suffering, and that's I don't want to even judge our kids to Charlie Kirk, but when he died, I saw it. I thought to myself, do you know how many more lives he's going to turn to Christ just from dying? And now look at what's happened, and it's no everybody I've met. I mean, when I talk about the girl drama, I'm just talking about general drama without fentanyl. I just want to talk to a man about something
Yeah,
different
yeah,
than what
yeah.
what, what color, makeup are you wearing today? All that kind of junk. But it's funny.
Oh, okay.
Frankie asked me, or he did an event at his house where he put all the posters in front of his house, and I went there, and I think it's Channel 11, CBS or something news was there, and they were interviewing me, and I said, me meeting Frankie, I shouldn't even be friends with Frankie. I mean, but now we are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean,
Exactly.
it's the amazing people that, and to be honest, I've lost most of my friends after Preston died, mainly because I believe I'm kind of like that third wheel. You know, they don't know what to say, which I get, and it's like, well, we can invite Mike over, but he doesn't have a kid anymore. Whatever that mentality is. I don't blame him, but I get it. So.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really it's I never imagined birthing Ava that I would have Ava in the urn sitting right there. Like that was just not in our plan of life.
Yeah.
God had other plans, and I don't question God, but I think a lot of the poison and the fentanyl, like I said, I think God put some of the strongest warriors to put out a fight that had to take on a fight that had to be fought.
Yeah.
You know, because you think about how hard all of us, you know, have worked to tackle every angle of this, whether it be social media, whether it be the government, whether it be the laws. I mean, whether it be helping people who are poor, whether it be, fighting for the opioid money. I mean, people took on so many different realms of this to put an end to it. And, it'll be a lot of years before it's ended, but I'm hoping that I'm seeing some form of light in deaths decreasing. I'm seeing a lot of meth and cocaine coming over the border now, and there's narco terrorists. I think that, you know, I think eventually I think the other thing is, with the whole fentanyl act, trafficking fentanyl is, a pretty good hefty sentence. So I think that, maybe that'll deter people. Now, whether there bring other drugs across, it's always, drugs are always going to be a problem. You're never going to stop all drugs from coming to the United States, but
Yeah.
um, to stop drugs that are, just flat out murdering people and, in a half a second, not even a half a second, they're dying on the spot. Like it's just, it's horrible that it took years and years of all of us doing this kind of thing, talking about it.
I think I don't think I'm hoping, which is sad, that I think fentanyl will be gone one day. But there's these new drugs that I don't even want to educate myself on. There's so much,
Or,
and it's worse
mm,
than fentanyl. I mean, of course, the nitazines and everything. But then I hear some of
yeah,
this other stuff, and it's like I don't even want to know anymore. I shouldn't be in this
yeah,
position. And you're right
no,
about the cocaine, because I was in where was I on the Canadian border in Oregon, and I asked the border agents there. I said, "What are you seeing mostly come across now?" And he said, "Basically, coke and meth is
coke
what
and meth, yeah.
coke and meth." So
I mean, cocaine long term, if it's not mixed with anything. And the thing about it is, my understanding is the stuff that's coming in now is so pure that it really has
yes,
potential to kill people. So, and you're dealing with a different, so when you think about narco terrorists, you think about cartels, you're dealing with different generations now, right? We're changing generations. And so, as you see in the States, not to be, um, putting people in groups, but there's, back in our day, you didn't say a swear word to your mom. You got soaking in meth, got your butt kicked, right? But nowadays, kids talk back more. Like the generations change, and so I think that's the same thing with the drug generations. They're changing too. So what we have to do is stop being, fighting from behind and getting in front of it. And I think that, there's votes going up. I think that was step one to getting in front of it. Like, they're not going to bring drugs to our country. We're not going to kill our citizens.
well, you're doing an amazing job out there, and I'll
Good.
and I'll tell people, even if you're just watching this for the first time, and it's like, well, I don't want to get out there and do all the work and all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell people you don't have to do any of it. But I said the only thing I request is that maybe one time in your life you share your loved one's story, because that could save a life. Yeah, if that's all
It
you,
could.
yeah. So
Yeah, it can. It can. Even, you'll find that in the oddest places, um, you'll find people. So just to give you an example, I was at Walmart. I used to spend a lot of money doing outreach, and I was at Walmart and I was buying just tons of stuff because I was short from donations. And um, the woman behind me, um, tears in her eyes, and I just knew that she had lost someone. And so we got to talking, and yes, she had lost her nephew, and she ended up being one of my biggest supporters for donations. Her and her entire family, yeah. And she didn't really, we didn't have to say anything to each other. I could just see the tears in her eyes. That was enough. So, but I thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for leading me, and keeping my Ava up at the waterfall. That was really beautiful. I really appreciate that. Anything we can do to keep our kids' faces, alive, to keep our kids alive, but, in our hearts, um, it helps with the grief.
Well, thank you, and we're family now, and
Of course.
now I got a
Yeah.
place to stay in Florida. Just kidding.
Yeah. When I feel like in my hybrid, I'll drive to Texas. You got a place I can hang.
Well, thanks so
All right.
much, and we'll talk soon, Debbie.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Bye bye. Waterfall number 20. This is the Upper Falls on the Provo River. Today's verse is Romans 12:15. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. I like this verse because it makes me, when I get sad looking at all these families that have lost somebody, but I just want to let them know that I'm there for them anytime. And here are the readings for this waterfall. Ava Michelle Howland, Forever 24, Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania. Dalton Gallops, Forever 20, Columbus, Georgia. Brandon Lee Staines, Forever 35, Ephrata, Pennsylvania. Gregory Bollinger, Forever 27, Reading, Pennsylvania. Travis Spuse, Forever 24, McFarland, Wisconsin. Joshua Fox, Forever 44, Minnesota. John Castillo, Forever 19, Houston, Texas. Last one for this waterfall is Seth Ekman, Forever 21, Texas Gulf Coast. Thank you everyone that submitted. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. I got my walking partners here. I'll tell you what, I wish I could fly right now.